My life was crumbling.
Things are not perfect.
You just have to go really hard.
That's a Foxhole moment, I guess.
So we want to dive deep into the trenches.
I don't want to be normal. I don't want to be like
Everything's sacrificed when you're trying to build a business.
Yeah, I want that.
We'll see how deep in the foxhole we get. Welcome back to another episode of Foxhole. I'm your host, Schroeder.
JC Chanowsky.
And we are so excited to be here. We're with our good friend. Welcome to the show, Drew.
Hey, how are you guys? Happy to be here.
We're so happy. It's like a magical experience. We're about to go on a journey and learn a little bit more about you, Drew, and your business.
Oh, nice.
Thanks for stopping by. I know you're busy. We just got to talk a little bit before the show, learn a little bit more about you and what you have going on right now. Right, the viewers are listening. Why don't you go ahead and just tell them a little bit about Drew, your company, and what you have going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Drew Larison. I am a husband to Erin, my wife, who runs the business with me, as well as the dad to two kids, Ellie and Jude. I live in Kokomo, Indiana, and I own and the founder and CEO of Larison Media. So we are a marketing agency that specializes in assisting small businesses increase their impact internally, locally, and beyond. Mainly, we really just believe the small businesses are the ones that are changing the world. So we are really lucky to be able to play a role into helping them share their stories and increase the impact that they're having.
Very cool. So every time you say, I always think Beach Boys. And I thought when you first posted come out,
you're not alone.
No.
I get that a lot. Unfortunately, it's not the one they were singing about in the song. Is a classic mid-sized Midwestern town. However, the Kokomo they are singing about in that song doesn't even exist anymore. It was one of those small Caribbean islands that got bought up by a cruise ship, like a cruise liner. So that Kokomo doesn't exist anymore. So it just leaves us. So here we are. Yeah.
Fun facts on In the Fox. Now I want to go
listen. Right. See?
Yeah. We'll do some Beach Boys after this.
Beach Boys are great.
When you talk about your business, you just have it so dialed in as your business, your mission, what you can tell that you just exude that of, why your company exists, what passion for helping business owners tell their story and create a larger impact. So different than most marketing companies that are talking about marketing and, the elusive world of what that is, but you always have mission and purpose behind it.
Yeah. And that really, and I know Angela, you and I have talked about this a lot, and JC will soon talk about it a lot in his life. But a few years ago, we really dove into not just about what we do as a company, or not even how we do what we do as a company, but we really started locking in on why do we do what we do, which a lot of that, came down to a lot of self-discovery, a lot of internal meetings. We read this book by Simon Sinek, which is Start With Why. And we truly believe that people don't buy and don't spend money with you. They don't become clients or customers of you because of what you do. They really do it because of why you do it. So we really came into this big discovery of why does Larison Media exist? It all kind of started too. My wife challenged me when she really joined the business, because she's always been a part owner with me, but she officially joined the company a few years back, and she had this realization as she got to really see in the office how we operate. She asked me hey, if you die, which was morbid at the time, but if Drew is not here, right? If Drew is not in the business anymore, why does Larison Media exist? Why would this company continue? And I honestly did not have a good answer, and I probably threw out some baloney answers of something cheesy, right? Because marketing's fun, or something like that. But we really had this realization, if I'm not here, if Drew is not in the office or even on this earth, why in the world would Larison Media continue to exist? And I didn't have an answer. So we really pushed down this path of finding out Larison Media's deeper purpose. And, you can find this in some of the best and biggest companies in the world. You guys are well aware that I am a pretty big fan of the Walt Disney Company. My family and I, we love to attend the parks, and it's a big part of our lives. So much so that like I've really fallen in love with like Walt Disney's business practices. But like think about Walt Disney, right? Walt Disney, he passed away before Epcot was finished in Florida. So imagine all the magic or all like the creation that Disney has created since Walt Disney passed away. That, let's imagine they didn't have that purpose. They didn't have their why. They didn't really have a deeper reason to exist past Walt. Disney would not be here today, you know, but like Disney does have that purpose. They do have that reason to exist. And that is why, even without Walt's physical presence, now he's there emotionally and mentally in every decision they make, but like that company will continue to go until there is no world, I think. Right. And like that's just a great example of my mind. And you have the conversation of legacy is a big part of this, you know, the same type of conversation. But like, I guess for the business owners listening, do you guys have that? If JC drops out, if Angela drops out, or if anybody drops out of their business, do their companies continue? You know, and if they do, you probably do have that deeper purpose of why your company exists. You know, so like Angela was saying, like Larison Media does not exist to make websites or to run marketing campaigns or to worry about cost per leads or lead generation. That's not why we exist. That is what we do. That is not why we do it. We do it because we truly believe that small businesses are the people that are changing the world. And what an honor it is to play a small role in helping tell their story and help create this impact that they're having that is literally changing the world. That's why we exist. And that has nothing to do with Drew. Has nothing to do with Aaron, has nothing to do with the Larison name in general. That just has to do with why we think we're here and the role that we've been blessed with to help small businesses keep changing the world in the way they are.
Well said. I mean, that's some real deep thoughts right there for a business owner to think about. I'm excited to get a why call here with you guys in a couple of weeks to figure that out, because I probably thought I knew why, and help me dig deep and really figure out the tree behind the why for me and my companies. So it's great thoughts for business owners to think about, step back. But if you're having time doing that, you know, you've got a resource like you and Aaron to help dive in and open up that onion, I guess, if you will, to peel the layers back and really figure it out.
100%. Yeah. So we fell in love with that process so much. So we have like a sister company as well called the Kokomo Post, which is like a local infotainment type of business for Kokomo, kind of like a news-ish organization. And we did it for Larison Media, and we also did it for the Kokomo Post. So like it was a big part of our lives for a bit. But we loved that process so much that we actually, Aaron and I, went and got our personal why discovery done by Simon Sinek's team. So we got to see really how they do it, and like we dove in deep. So I have like a personal why now, and so does Aaron. And now we are offering consulting services for people as well as companies, like to help them find their why. I think one of Simon's quotes, which Aaron says all the time, the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and then the day you discover your why. And it's so true, right? So the fact that we get to come in and help people really discover that, it has nothing to do with what we say, it has nothing to do with the advice we give. We just kind of walk you along this path with certain questions, and you are the person that really discovers what that is. But to play a small role in that along the way is like one of the most rewarding things I've ever done professionally. Aaron and I actually were at a conference a few months back, and we got to do this in a room full of like 40 people. And it was quite an experience, because usually it's like a one-on-one consulting type of thing. We got challenged to do it for a room of 40 people, and like the feedback we got from people was so rewarding, because like JC said, like a lot of people think they know their why. A lot of people like, oh, my kids, that's my why, or like or my family, that's my why, which is great. I love that you love your family, your kids, but like that is not why you were put on earth, right? And like your why is something you discover by looking back. And your why is not something that you hope to be, right? It's not like this thing like, oh, I hope to be in better shape, or I hope to be more secure financially. It's not that either. Your why is who you are through the stories that have built of your life until this point, right? That's who you are. So like helping people through that process has been a really rewarding thing. But doing it in a room full of 40 people was challenging, but it was pretty awesome at the same time.
I just love when you talk about it with Disney, why it exists and the mission is forward. Just chills and goosebumps. And so I can't express, I think the importance of business owners figuring it out. Like everything else in your life makes sense when you do. Every business decision is aligned. You're on a path like aligned with our mission. And not only do you feel better about every decision, you stop chasing shiny stars so much as an entrepreneur and really do things with your vision that it makes all the difference in the way your clients and your team interact with you. And when you relate it back to that Disney experience, like we all know the whole knows what a Disney experience is if you never or interacted in any way. Get real clear on your why and your mission.
Yeah.
People like experience in your business because it everything is around that vision. So we could do a whole episode on that, but we're gonna move on to other things.
I know I could have gone off on a couple more questions. I might ask at the end if we have enough time, but
Yeah, for sure.
Some of the fun parts, Drew. Why don't we celebrate a win? Something that you celebrate, either your business, your personal life, whatever it is. What would you like to share with us today?
I guess if you've never seen me on a podcast before, I'm in a new office right now. So we actually just moved in to our new offices here in downtown Kokomo, which we were also in downtown Kokomo before, but we're in a newer building now. We went from around 1,800 square feet to 6,800 square feet in our new office. So that was quite the move. And, stuff still needs hung up on the walls. I think we are confusing our mailman quite a bit right now too. So we got to figure that out. But I mean, just being in this space and like having the need for this space is such a win because I remember roughly 5 years ago when we moved into our old office, I remember looking at Erin, and Erin wasn't in like day to day of the company at that point, but I remember looking at her, I'm like, man, we'll be here forever. We'll never need more space, right? And then literally when we left that old office a month and a half ago, we couldn't fit more desks in there if we wanted to. Like it was just full of people, full of desks. So it was silly for me to think 5 years ago that we wouldn't need something bigger. And like I just keep having that thought in this new space too. And I'm like, man, we'll never need a bigger space. But like I've said that before. So keep betting on yourself and shooting for something bigger, and it's been really cool. So our new space has a lot more studio space in it now for our sister company to use, as well as for local clients of Larison Media here in Kokomo in the Midwest. And it's just great. We've got this new room called the living room, is what I've been coined it, which is like a big couch area, and that's where we have like all of our team meetings. And it's been a really cool thing to see. So from going from 1,800 to 6,800 is a big move, but it's pretty great.
That's incredible.
That is.
That's a lot of furniture to buy.
You know what? And what I'm learning is it's a lot of furniture to put together as well. Like, that's like one of the biggest burdens in my life right now is like, oh, another piece of furniture came in. And
tiny screw.
That is never.
I will say I married the right woman because Erin loves putting that stuff together. She she's a puzzle brain. She loves puzzles. So she kind of looks at that stuff as like a puzzle. However, it's just like finding the time to do it is tough. But at some point, I think we're having like a grand opening type of party sometime this fall. And as long as I have it all done by then, we'll be good.
You got some time.
I'll maybe try to manifest you some furniture fairies that come into your life magically put it all together.
Yes, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
Well, Drew, we went over a win, and we know that business life isn't all roses and butterflies. So we like to dive into moments on your business journey that things weren't going so well. That you wanted to burn it all down, and there for you in those trench moments. Get out. What did you learn from it?
Yeah. So when you guys told me you were going to ask this, it's interesting because it's a recent-ish struggle. And no, it's not putting together furniture for a space 5,000 square foot larger than the last one. And I think I have a lot of conversations with business owners about this too. And it's the idea of growing well and like growing healthy. And that's a challenge we've had recently because in the last probably like 18 to 24 months, we've easily tripled our MRR. So like our monthly recurring revenue, which in the agency space is a big measurement of like how well you're doing, right? Because how many retainers you're getting in and things like that. So we've seen crazy growth in like the last 18 to 24 months. And you'd think like the response to that is like, that's awesome. Congrats. That must be amazing. All things are well, things are growing, which is true. But all at the same time, it comes with so many headaches, and like it comes with like, how do we, and like the biggest question of scaling and growing in general to me is like, how do we keep as much things the same without them at all being the same? Like, and I think I read a book, which I know you guys have probably read or at least heard about. It's a book called 10X is easier than 2X. And there's so many great lessons in that book. And I'll be honest, I listened to it. I didn't read it. It's a lie. I listened and didn't read. But one of the biggest lessons I learned from that book is the lesson of whatever got to you to where you are is not what's going to get you to where you're going. And like, that's a really hard lesson to learn, especially in like the business owner community that, I know that you and I and all of us are online. The conversation of, stop working in, stop or work less in, work more on is like a really, really common conversation, which is, it's very true, right? Like that's the dream and things like that, to get to that point. But at the same time, that's not really possible when you're growing. There's so many things that still take you to be hands-on and like because if you don't know how to get to where you're going because you've never been there before, your staff definitely doesn't know. So it's this conversation of whatever got you to where you are now is not what's going to get you to where you're going is frankly just terrifying. Because I think right before the growth really starts, you're kind of in that spot of like comfort, right? You probably have some support staff. You probably have like, you're working definitely more on than in than you ever have before. But then like, it feels like overnight, you're like, oh crap, I am not comfortable anymore. There are so many questions that need answered that I do not have the answers to, that I don't think, I can just call somebody and get the answers to those questions. So we had that. We had that moment. And it was like one of those things I asked myself multiple times, is this worth it? Right? Like, is it worth to keep growing and getting as big as we can get? Because it seems really hard compared to, like I said, before that pivot of growth, you're pretty good, right? You've got a support staff. Like you've got a staff that's like, awesome and serving clients well, the ones you've got, but like then you keep getting more in. You're like, all right, so we need to hire more people and who's going to train these people? And so that's been pretty hard, to be honest. And like just getting past that growth. And I told a quick story, I guess, before we started filming about you're always learning something about a process or a system. There is no such thing as a complete process or a complete system. I think, especially if you're growing, those things are constantly changing. One of the things we did, we quickly got two hires to me were really important during this growth, and it was hell for a bit because there was so much to do and not enough people to do it at times. But the two hires that were really important to me was figuring out I need someone that their full focus is internal impact of the agency. Like I need someone like the only thing they're worrying about is all things operations, all things systems, all things people. Like all the impact that hopefully Larison Media is creating for itself. I need one person to own that. And I have that person. And then the second person was like, all right, internal impact is great, but if we're not creating external impact for our clients, then it doesn't matter about the internal impact, right? So then I found someone through a promotion actually internally to be fully owning the external impact that we're having for our clients. So I had fulfillment covered, and then I had like all things operation and procedure covered internally, and that made things so much easier, right? But it was just a lesson I had to learn, and like I worked more during that time than I probably ever had. Lost a lot of sleep during that time because like didn't know how to grow, And like a lot of this happens common in the agency space. And honestly, a lot of clients that we have now, I say they have like post agency trauma, and like they have like horrible stories from other agencies that they've worked with that like we're kind of responsible for now to like ease their mind that not all agencies are bad. Which is I've spouted off online about that a few times because like the stories I do hear are just wild of what people get done. But like one of the biggest things I hear from clients about their old agency is like they just didn't grow well. Like every time I talked to somebody on a phone, it was a different person. No one knew what they were doing. Like they're hearing all these things, and it was terrifying. So I'm like, I can't do that, And one of the biggest things we did that we're still doing a little bit, but it scared the crap out of me, was when we signed a new client, we needed a buffer because we were getting so many new clients at one time that it's impossible to onboard these people well if like they sign a contract and like the next day they start working. So I mean, at one time we literally had, I think, a 5-week buffer from when you sign a contract to when your work actually starts to help my team literally catch up and to make sure that onboarding process, which is so important. You guys know this. Like sometimes a business relationship can be made or broken simply during the onboarding process. Like that's all it takes. If that's not good, there's a slim chance that the relationship as a whole is going to be good. So like I just knew we had to like pause these out. We had to buffer these out to make sure that we were still treating people well and they were having a great experience. But like that was also terrifying to me because how wonderful a signed contract feels, and then how terrifying it is after you get it to be able to tell them like, yeah, but we need like 5 weeks, because then you're just terrified that they're going to like skip town, right? And like you put a lot of work into like getting them to be a client and signing as a client, and then you're just terrified to say anything because they could potentially leave. But we did it, and guess what? No one complained. Not a single person said, no, I need it now. Not a single person said, well, that sucks. Not a single person said like, well, I'm going to, go to another agency, because honestly, it came off as like a power move in a weird way. Like, hey, the agency you've chosen to go with, we care really deeply about your first impressions with us and your onboarding. So we need to make sure you have a great experience with us. We really need to space this out a little bit. And there was like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. Like that was the response we got from people. But it was just that terror of like throwing that out there for people.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get back. But we did it, and we caught up. Not everybody's hair is on fire every day anymore. So that's a great new little element. But it was scary to do things that we've never done before. But my brain, what kept me up at night, and then also what put me back to bed, was like the thought of like what got you to where you are is not what's going to get you to where you're going. And it's a beautifully terrifying thought. But if you really lean into that and trust that, you'll get to the other side.
Yeah, the experience part is so instrumental. I mean, even with my Christmas light business, we talk about that all. The experience starts with the initial phone call. If you fall short in that, and the delivery of it, you're just going to set the tone wrong. They're going to have a bad, feeling going into it. And for you to say, hey, we care so much about you, we need you to wait. And when we're ready for you, we're going to give you everything we have. Instead of like, just come on in. We got you. We might get to you today. Might get you today. Might get you tomorrow. We'll just see how it goes. Like that again shows how committed you are to their success. Not just let's sign them all up and just get some paycheck and get that MRR, and then we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And like, unfortunately, that's what a lot of agencies do. Like, if they get that signed contract, and we'll talk to you in 12 months when it's time to renew. But that's never been who we are, and it's never will be who we are, or who we are moving forward. And like I said, it's so silly. And like, there's conversations, right? And you guys have all heard about like just the conversation about raising your prices in general. That's a horrifying thing for a business owner to do. But then when you hear these people tell their stories about when they did it, and like literally no one complained. And if they did, it was probably from an account you might have been losing money from anyway, So I mean, like it's nothing at the end of the day. But that was like another example of that, right? It was just like, no, I'm terrified to make any sort of possible inconvenience for the people that write checks to us every month. And it's terrifying to me. But at the end of the day, like, it's fine. Like everything's fine. There might be others. What's that little meme of the guy drinking coffee and there's fire all around him and it's like, no, this is fine, everything's fine. Like that's kind of like, I don't know, every day. But it was just one of those lessons of like, it's fine as long as like you're doing it. And I think this is a big part of it too. As long as any decision you make is not like completely a selfish decision, because like I said, like one of the biggest reasons we needed to spread out these onboardings, yes, it helped us internally, right? Because things were just wild at that time. But also like two, it was so that the client could actually have a better experience, right? And I think a lot of times decisions companies make, they do, and then they might be some selfish and then some selfless in that decision, but they do a really poor job of explaining the selfless part when they explain the decision to their customers. That's what they're afraid of. But as long as you like truly come at it from a heart of, no, we're doing this so you can have a better experience. Who's going to argue with that? Who wants to have a worse experience, right? If you like flip that statement around, like nobody wants to have a bad experience or not, whether they think they're getting a refund or not. No one wants to have a bad experience. So if you come at it from that standpoint or from that heart, it's fine. Everything's fine, but it's a horrifying hurdle to jump at first.
You did a great job of in that growth stage of taking a step back and not letting your even in that one decision or one implementation, letting the service fall.
Yeah, because we went from like slightly overstaffed to severely understaffed really quickly, so like we needed more time to hire people in, get them fully trained to a point where we're like really comfortable giving them a client, so there was so much stuff going on behind the scenes that like all those contracts that 2 to 5 week buffer we had changed everything, where we were made us really move confidently into the future with like who we had and what we were doing. But we just knew if we just kept doing what we were doing, not only is it going to like hurt us to the point of like reputation about how, like, oh, I don't know, Larison Media, our onboarding was awful, but like that also will hurt the impact that we're creating for our clients, which is the entire reason we're here. So that's the selfless part of that.
Through those two hires you had that you said, really important earlier, what would it sound like? One was an operations manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she is our director of internal impact is her title.
Love that. And then the other one you said was an internal promotion.
Yeah. So we had, her name is Reese Johnson, actually. Yeah. And she was a brand strategist for us, and she got promoted to director of client impact. So those are those two job titles. One is, responsible for like agency impact internally, and one is responsible for the impact that we're creating for our clients.
Looking for those positions, did you know exactly what you're looking for, and were you able to identify her as to be that person, or is it just kind of part of the discovery while you're putting the job ad together? How that worked out?
A little bit of both. So actually, my director of internal impact, she's been my right-hand person for forever, and like she's had a lot of different titles as like the agency has grown, and she actually worked for our sister company a little bit at one point too. So like I actually hired her name's Pam, and I hired Pam. She actually just celebrated 5 years with us, but like I hired Pam because I quickly had enough self-awareness in myself to know like I am not a detail like operation or like system person. And Pam had never worked at an agency before. She actually worked at my church, and like she helped throw events for church, and she did like guest services things for our church. And I just was easily able to see in her, I'm like, details, like you care about details, you care about people, you care about like making things actually happen. Like I can come up with ideas all day, every day, but I have always had Pam to actually help me make them happen in like the reality of the world. So Pam's like been in kind of that position for a while where it's been like operations and process, but like she's never been in this specific of a role than she is now. So I've always had Pam for a while. And then Reese, Reese is a really cool story for us in general. Like Reese was an intern for us when she was a senior in college. So like she literally was in college, she was interning for us, and then she got one position with us, got another position, and now she's in this position. And she's just the thing about Reese is, she's just awesome. but two, like she cares so much about the clients. Like honestly, and she'll agree to me, this is not like a dig, like to a fault. Like she cares about the clients. Like she'll go like well above and beyond our actual scope of work at times because she wants to make sure the clients are happy. Which like as a boss is a really weird space to be in because like one, I'm really proud of her, but also like, hey, we can't just do that all the time. So but like I just saw that in Reese, you know, and it makes so much sense. And honestly, Reese is a younger professional, and like I've just been able to see so much good in her, and like be able to give her this position at her age is a really cool thing, and she's crushing it. So it's just, but I don't know, there's the EOS model, which we have not gone fully in as an agency. It's good responsibility of me because I said, all right, I want to get over this hurdle of growth, and then we'll start looking at EOS. One thing I have heard about EOS is like the seats that you need, right? And like one of them is operations, one of them is fulfillment or service, the service seat. So I'm like, all right, I need to start there, because if I can already have that done before we start EOS, that's like bonus points probably in my eyes. But you know, like that's what we needed, and they've been great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Pam is out. No Reese yet, but Pam is great.
Yeah, Pam is awesome.
So let's dive back into this of Dan Plotowski's area of growth when you go through business purgatories.
Sure.
That going to the next level, and you did such a great job doing it with any phase that you're scaling in a business. Before you do it, you're comfortable. You're like, this feels good. Like I got everything off my plate. I delegated smoothly.
You've made it, right? That's the thought. Like, oh, I'm in the promised land that everybody talks about.
It doesn't require me, but then you go into scaling, and like you said, you dive back in it, and whatever, it feels different to all people, or depending where you're going. It can feel like, why do this? I want to burn it all down. I even know what I'm doing. Did I even know what I was doing as a business owner? Why did I make this decision? And you're in this place where you had to put some significant place, and you did that. It requires so much of you, not only to get in, to build it, like you said, but you feel like, and if you make the wrong decisions in that scaling, this business that was great, the wrong decisions in scaling, the whole thing burns down whether you wanted to or not.
Yeah. Like honestly, like the image in my head is like, we're constantly, from like day one of owning a business, like we're constantly just walking on this tightrope, right? And like at certain times of owning the business, the rope gets thicker. Maybe like at one point it's like a plank of wood, right? And then maybe sometimes you're walking on like a nice little sun deck, right? It's like real thick, everything feels great, but then like you keep going and that rope gets thin again, right? And then it gets thicker again. And then like, so similar probably what Dan talks about, which I think he did, that analogy you're talking about, he talked about sales boosts. But it's so true, you know, but like during the good times, you're on that, you know, wide plank of wood and like, oh, this is easy. I could walk on this all day. This is great. But then it's like you keep going on, then you're back on that tightrope. And what's really scary is not just the idea of walking on a thin tightrope, but like the stuff you're holding. Maybe that's the second part of that visual analogy. The more you walk, the more you're holding, and like the more responsibility you're in charge of, right? Whether that's staff, which is like, I am in charge of the health of this thing that I'm holding so much that if I drop it, their families don't eat, right? Or their families don't pay their mortgage. They don't pay these things. So like the rope gets thin, and your backpack full of things that you're carrying gets heavier and heavier. Man, really, when you talk about it like that, why in the world do we do this? Right? It is like this crazy, like, why do we just like, yeah, this is something I want to do. This sounds great. But you know, I can't imagine it any other way. And like it's really funny if you ask Aaron. I should have had Aaron on this today too. It would have been cool, like both of us, all four of us. Yeah. But Aaron talks about like just how quickly her mind changed when she actually like came in day to day of the business. One of the funniest things she references or says is like, oh, I have so much more empathy for my past bosses that I just thought they were like, you know, bosses. But I'm like, now that I know what's all been on their head, I get it now, right? There's been like that realization, which has been funny. But like it's just never ending, and it's been an interesting thing for her to realize and see firsthand now. Because I'll be honest, like when it was just me, like I didn't tell her, I didn't like hide things from her, but like when things were like stressful, I was like I don't need to put this on you. Like she worked at a nonprofit, she had a stressful work life, as it was. But now like she's like in it, and she sees things that maybe I didn't let her know about beforehand. But it's been cool. I will say, like, the tightrope's been a lot easier with her, to like actually have somebody to lean on and talk to and go through stuff. It's been a lot better.
One of my questions I wanted to get to earlier is, how was that transition? Because we all know that oftentimes partners working with partners can be difficult. It's not for everybody, but it sounds like this was a huge stick for you guys in the transition.
Yeah.
Over. And it's pretty exciting. And I know when I jumped on the call with you a couple of weeks ago,
yeah,
you guys rode together, communicate with each other. It was fun. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely been hard. I mean, it is not cupcakes and rainbows all the time, like working with a spouse. And I think it's been probably like the last year we really hit like a rhythm together, because it really came down to us knowing, like, all right, what is Aaron really strong at? Or like, what can Aaron do that Drew can't do? And then vice versa too. Like, what can Drew do that Aaron can't do? And like really find those rhythms. But I mean, no, her and I were really intentional about it too. I mean, I don't know, Angel, if I told you this, like we actually went to like marriage counseling before we fully made the decision to like work together. So we like literally did a few months, I think around 3 months of like marriage counseling with a therapist. We were fine. Like our marriage was fine, but like we kind of wanted the third party person to be like, yes, I think you could do this, So it was, we really sat down with the therapist and we're like, here's what we're thinking about doing. We want you to talk to us as long as you can talk to us, pull out red flags that maybe we're not seeing. Maybe find like, it was honestly, it reminded me a lot of premarital counseling, which I don't know. I mean, if everybody's premarital counseling is the same, but a lot of our premarital counseling was just the conversation of expectations. Like, what are your expectations for this? Who's going to do this? And like a lot of times in those premarital counseling conversations, you realize, oh, wait, we have very different expectations. Thank God we're having this conversation now and not like we're in the thick of marriage where everything's more stressful and terrifying, right? So like very similar thing, and one of Erin's biggest worries about joining the company was like she saw what I had been building day to day, culturally as well as just business wise. And she's like, what if I come in and ruin it? Like, what if like the spouse comes in and everybody's like weird now, So like that was just a really good conversation to talk about ahead of time, which of course, like, I don't know, I'm an Enneagram 3. So one of my biggest faults is like always thinking very positively. Like I'll avoid anything negative that could possibly happen because I'm very like achievement minded. So like that was actually, because when she would say things to me, I'm like, no, it'll be great. Everything's good. Everything will be great. There'll be no problems. It'll be the best thing ever. Because like that's what my brain tells me to say. But we don't live in a perfect world. So like it was really great for us to talk to whether it was a counselor or not, to be honest, or like a therapist or not, like just have a third party kind of just witness who we are and potentially throw out some red flags that her and I weren't possibly seeing. And I think that was a really great thing that I highly recommend if anybody is potentially, starting from scratch a business with a spouse, or a spouse is coming into the business. Highly recommend that.
I like how you guys went proactive counseling.
Yeah.
Counseling, because I mean it speaks a lot about your son, how you really did care about each other. Finding that too, because working all day, working at home, dealing with the family, the kids, you still want to talk about work, trying to figure out how to separate that and set up boundaries to separate it is hard.
And I mean that's obviously the dream is like leave work at work, but let's be real, like sometimes that just can't happen, because like with her and I's roles in the business, there are some days her and I are so busy doing what we're doing that there are no times for Drew and Aaron to meet. So then sometimes that dinner table turns into our time on the calendar to actually talk about what needs to be talked about. But I don't know, I grew up in a business owner home. I'm like a fourth generation entrepreneur. So like my mom never worked in dad's business, but she's the spouse of the business owner, so she kind of did, right? Which she might not have been in the office, but she was definitely involved. So I mean, I was very used to, as a kid, hearing dinner start, because my dad worked with my grandpa. So mom's number one question every single day at dinner was like, what'd your dad have to say today? You know, so then I would hear like the ramblings for the next 15 minutes about what grandpa and dad were fighting about with this, blah, 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 or, you know, everything like that. So like in a weird way, I'm used to it. But you're right. There's definitely a goal of setting healthy relationship boundaries, to where work is work and you are not just my business partner, you are my wife, and that comes first. And then I'll be honest, like some days that's easier said than done, you know, and depending on how busy the office is and what's going on, and her and I agreeing on one step that a business should take and are not agreeing in another step, you know, and but that's the dream, you know, and you are number one, my wife, and number two, we're business partners.
Should have like name tags or hats. Like, this is CEO Drew. This is husband Drew talking.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like there, but even comes down to little things too. Like if her and I are ever in a meeting together, whether the person knows us locally or not, like I never introduce her in that setting as my wife. Like, no, this is, you know, co-owner Aaron, because I don't want her, and vice versa, you know, like I don't want someone to just think, oh yeah, his wife's here, or I don't want someone to think like, oh yeah, her husband's here, right? Like in that setting, I don't want her to be diminished to my spouse. I want her to be like, no, she's co-owner of this thing, right? She's badass. Like that's who she is, and that's why she's here. She's not here just because she's my wife. So like just little things like that is just separates it. But with the goal of just respect, you know, and like respecting the situation. Am I allowed to curse? I just said ass. Sorry if that's not okay.
Yeah, no. We'll just throw in more. But
Sorry. Just want to make sure.
So from like aligning those expectations beginning and how you describe them, you know, things that you wouldn't think about, worries that you both had, expectations, and keep realigning on those.
Yeah.
And to keep respect going and boundaries, and it does, and you can tell that you guys are intentional about it, not just that you're, you know, mashing this together, because it does, you know,
Yeah,
flow and gel and even in and out together, but that you're so intentional about that.
Yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, and I really try to be intentional, because honestly, she's got it like so much worse than I do. Like just society wise, you know, if like there's a stereotype of like the wife coming into the business, like, oh, what's she gonna do, run the books? No, I mean, so like I really try to be intentional about, like, she is not an employee, I am not her boss, right? You know, like and if I am her boss, she is mine, you know, like that's really that relationship. And like I try to be as intentional as possible of like, she is unbelievably my equal in this thing. Like this is not Drew's business that Aaron just happens to work at, you know, or work, you know, be an employee of. And I mean, so like just due to like societal, like gender stereotypes, she's got it so much harder than I do. So like there's a lot of things that I try to be intentional about to like nip those stereotypes in the bud. Like I was saying, like if we're in a meeting together, like this is not my wife right now. Like this is my business partner. Like you need to talk to her the same way you would me. So yeah, all the empathy in the world. She's got a lot worse than I do, especially like in the timeline of things, right? Mm-hmm. Since I like started it and like she didn't work day to day. So there's like tons of like gender stereotypes. People could probably fill in the gaps of like, you know, what she does here and things like that. So there's certain stuff I'm like trying to be hypersensitive of in the moment.
There is amazing. I mean, that could be a whole episode. We could have a whole episode. You're definitely back on here, and we're just gonna do a whole episode about partner business. And
Aaron has said for a really long time we should have a podcast, and all we do is talk to other like spouses or like people that are together also running like that. There's really nobody tackling that, and it's so unique. No, we've said that for a long time. Yeah, it
is unique. It has its own set of, and you did it very great. I mean, we just decided to blend from the beginning of dating.
We got a counselor.
go
Take us
to
swim, baby. You know, let's do it. Yeah.
We did joke that we would need an integrator before we needed a counselor.
yeah, and that's true.
Oh,
That's
man.
we definitely came upon the fact that we needed an integrator in business as two visionaries.
That's the hack. You get an integrator who also has like a degree in psychology. You know, you find both, and you got 2 in 1. There you go.
We tried to get Michael Gregory to be in.
How'd that work?
Well, he's still not working with
It's still
Okay.
I don't think he wanted to take on, but because it goes down city rabbit holes of like when you're saying the gender, like regard. I mean, she had
yeah.
you general and coming in on the timeline. Find that in our relationship in business of the woman in business, like there are more inequality. There just are, you know.
Oh yeah, and like I said, it's natural, systematic. Like it's just stereotypes, general stereotypes, and like it's very real. But like if people really knew, I mean, like yeah, I was running Larison Media, started the Kokomo Post a little bit before she came on board, but like Erin has worked for multiple multi-million-dollar organizations as like a leadership or director role. Like she has taught us so much about stuff that we, as just a small business that we were, would never have known. I mean, like I said, she's the one that pushed us into this like why discovery world, right? Like that never would have happened without her here. So like I don't know. I try to do as much as I possibly can to like help, because there's always going to be a gap of like understanding or those be due to those, you know, genetic or you know, gender stereotypes. So I try to like be conscious of that as much as possible, because it could not be farther from the truth of like what her role is at this company.
Yeah. All right, Drew, that time flew by. We
Yeah.
definitely could extend this at least another 30, 45 minutes, but in order to respect your time, appreciate you coming on here. Where can our viewers find more about you and your company?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So larisonmedia.com is our website. LARISON. There's just one R in Larison. A lot of people don't know that. Or you can just find me anywhere on social media. It's Mr. Drew Larison is usually my handle on things. But add me on Facebook or Instagram, or I know JC likes my TikToks that I do every now and then where I would just respond to stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, but you can really just find me anywhere. LarisonMedia.com is a great way to start.
Yeah, if you're a business owner looking up your marketing, definitely take a look at their company, their website. I've seen the stuff they do, the content they put out. It is absolutely incredible. You guys do dive all in, and it's really fascinating the stuff you've been doing. So.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Thanks for joining for another episode of In the Foxhole. Or to continue to like, subscribe, and share. See you next week.
Take care.